Welcome to the community conversation. This is Hujjat initiative. In this regular conversation with individuals, we will explore their struggle, achievement, courage, and disappointment that shaped and guided their faith, family, and community. Today, we have with us a well-known personality of the community. He is a lawyer, a legal consultant, academic, and independent researcher. Zakir, and also does lecture on varieties of topics in many community centers. He is with us today to share his life journey and experiences. He is Maqbul Rahim. Maqbul Rahim, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Maqbul Rahim was born in Salaam Tanzania. His father is a well-known Zakir, Muhammad Hasnali Allah Rakhya Rahim, and mother was Nargis Hasnali Walji, daughter of well-known Zakira Fatima Bai Muriani. I don't know how many siblings you have, because I remember you, I was very friendly with Nisar. You have how many brothers and sisters?
We are 10 together.
10 together.
And I'm the eldest.
You are the eldest. I remember you, Makbul, from Dar es Salaam. He completed his primary and secondary education in Dar es Salaam and did his legal qualification with a Bachelor of Law degree from University of East Africa in 1970. He practiced law as state attorney and trial advocate in the Attorney General's chambers in Tanzania until 1973. After taking further qualification at the University of Sussex, he was with the Commonwealth Secretariat from 1975 to 2006 in London, United Kingdom, as a researcher and legal advisor, assisting some 20 or so Commonwealth governments and specializing in various developmental projects such as private sector development, natural resources development, and investment projects. After retirement from the Commonwealth Secretariat, he undertook consultancy assignments for UK firms and Commonwealth agencies and delivered training programs for lawyers in petroleum law and contracts. Presently, he is a legal and policy consultant with his own practice in the United Kingdom. In terms of community volunteering and support activities, he was a teacher and the principal of Hyri Islamic School in South London for 10 years. He has lectured on Islamic subjects in various Muslim communities and Islamic centers in United Kingdom, Europe, Canada, USA, Madagascar, and East Africa. He has presented Islamic subjects on various channels, including Ahlul Bayt TV, Sahar TV, and Safir TV channels. He has a keen interest in comparative religions, doctrines of faith and religion, Islamic jurisprudence, history and philosophy, and interfaith issues, and participated extensively in interfaith activities with diverse religious faiths through the Bushi Interfaith Forum, Hertfordshire and Haythorpe College, University of London, and Islamic Centre of England in London. Among many of his academic achievements, including teaching at higher Islamic institution, is his doctoral research and thesis on Islam and environment, and in particular his focus on changing environmental practice in faith communities in the light of climate change and global warming. And for this, he obtained PhD. Welcome, Dr. Maqbul Rahim.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I have to say, this is a very impressive achievement. I think I have to ask you here, what drives you and what is your work ethics to achieve all this sort of thing, combining family life, community life, and academic life?
Yeah,
what is your work ethics?
I think what drives me really has been both my family background. My father was a very keen researcher. He knew Urdu very well, and he wrote majlises in Urdu, and he recited lots of majlises in Mehfil Abbas in Dar es Salaam. So we had an environment where a lot of emphasis was being placed on obtaining knowledge, religious knowledge, and thinking about issues. And this, and similarly, when I look at my grandparents, particularly one that inspired me immensely was my maternal grandmother, who is called Fatma Bai Mulyani, Fatma Walji, who was a reciter in Mehfil Abbas, and she was one of the co-founders of Mehfil Abbas together with Fatma Bai. So I think what drives me is a constant need to know, to acquire knowledge, and not to be satisfied with what I have. In other words, I just feel that if I have acquired certain type of knowledge or certain type of understanding, I need to do something more. It is not enough. So this feeling of not being enough, not it being enough, and that I need to do more and strive more has been driving me throughout. And that drove me to do my doctorate research.
Yes, I have. That is my next question, actually. What is your doctorate or PhD thesis on?
Yeah, so my doctorate thesis was done when I have retired from my regular work, which was very intense. My work took me to so many countries and so much travel and so many projects to be done with governments, etc. But when I finished all that, and I just wanted to sit down and reflect and think about things, think about issues, go on the reflective mode. And that made me feel that I should do a further degree. And when I was teaching at the university, when I was teaching at Islamic College, I came across this deeper degree, which is being offered. It's a research degree being offered by many universities, and they were doing it in cooperation, in conjunction with Middlesex University. So I joined that particular program, which started with several modules being done at the Islamic College, and then it ended up with doing the writing of the thesis and development of the whole project towards the end, together with its, the viva, which was done at Middlesex University.
So what was your research on?
So the research was, I chose a subject which is both Islamic, and so it is consistent with what I'm trying to do in learn about Islamic perspectives on environment.
Right, okay.
And then also there were three elements to the research. That was one. The second one was, how is it manifested in practice in faith communities, and what does faith, how does faith impact, or the knowledge of faith or the belief in faith impact on practices in faith communities? And the third thing was, what is happening in the world at large, because the faith communities live not in a vacuum, but they live in the world, and the world was going through enormous change in terms of global warming and in terms of various climate disasters. And so I combined all the three aspects in the thesis and looked at each of them, and then came up with my findings, on what's the impact of faith on practice in faith communities, and how can one change faith communities' practices in real practical sense, taking into account the world developments, global developments, and also taking into account our own basic beliefs.
So what was your conclusion then?
So the conclusion was, the first conclusion was that everyone is very, very passionately in belief of Islamic concepts, asraf, and being, not being, kind of wasteful, and all these things in terms of utilizing the resources that Allah has given us, and being obedient to Allah, and to be thankful to Allah. So all this entire set of beliefs, I looked at it, but then I said, what does it mean in practical terms? And so one of the findings was that when it came to practical application, one needed something more. Faith itself was not a sufficient driver to make change. In other words, given the fact that if given the fact that there was faith and there was belief, there were many obstacles now to achieving what was being expected in the practice. And this needed additional drivers, that needed additional things.
Over there?
And for example, if we have to identify the obstructions and the obstacles and to see, okay, how are we going to deal with these obstacles, okay? And I found, for example, that we need to develop a lifestyle change. A lifestyle change which is meaningful and real. So if you are immersed in a consumption society and excessive consumption, etc., and now you're certainly thinking about, I don't want to do asraf, I want to be very careful of the resources, I want to share the resources. How am I going to change that? How am I going to extricate my life from
thank you. But the important thing that I was considering was, as you were explaining very well, that Islam is so environmental friendly, and we have religious lectures almost 200, 300 per year, and yet with Islam being so friendly, yet we haven't become, Muslims haven't become environmental friendly. The issue of asraf, there are so many exhortations on that, and yet we are still tackling that. So it's a question. Anyway, I understand the whole thrust behind your PhD, and I think the audience would have appreciated the explanation. Makbul, I want to come to the early life in Dar es Salaam. Now, we both grew up in Dar es Salaam. I studied at Tendeni, and I think you did as well, but you were senior to me, I think.
Yeah, I was at Azania Secondary School, which is right across Motendeni. Motendeni was at that time, in our eyes, mainly women, mainly girls.
No, that's Jangwani.
That's Jangwani.
Tendeni Primary School is in Tendeni Indian Primary School, and we did you study there?
No.
No, you didn't.
Because
in Tendeni, but you studied in Azania.
I studied Azania,
right,
and before Azania, I was in Jangwani.
Well, Jangwani was for girls' school.
But they had some streams.
Did they? All right.
So when I was there, they had some streams. So
right.
I guess instead of going to Motendeni,
right.
Which is near a town, I was in Jangwani.
Well, I'm surprised at that. But anyway, Tendeni Indian Primary School is where I studied, and I thought in your CV you do mention Tendeni. But so, how was your early life in Dar es Salaam? I mean, do you have pleasant memories of them?
Oh yeah, the seashore, the picnics, going for boating, going to various islands for excursions,
right?
And doing the sea and the beach was central to our lives.
Right.
So every time we came from the mosque, having said our prayers, I would walk to the seashore.
Right.
We'd go to Banda Beach. We'd even swim there, and we would. So it was like it was a constant reminder to us of Allah's ni'mah.
That's right.
That
so natural.
So natural, and environmentally very, very cooling and soothing.
Yeah.
So it was like a day would not pass unless you go to the seashore.
We used to call it Nano Daryo.
Nano Daryo. હવે નાનો દરિયો પણ હતો અને મોટો દરિયો પણ હતો.
That's right. But that was for us very far away.
ઘણા માણસ અમારે દૂર હતું. It was very far for many people, but it was Oyster Bay.
Yeah.
So of course now if you go to Dar es Salaam, I'm told that there is a bridge that links Aga Khan School, Aga Khan Hospital area straight into
Sasani.
Sasani and Oyster Bay area. So I haven't seen it myself, but I'm looking forward to seeing it because there's a nice walk. I think
yes, it is. It's quite a nice construction, and it looks beautiful as well.
More than 10,000 steps. Yes.
Yeah. So you received your primary and secondary education there, right? And then you went to do law. Yeah. So why law?
Yeah. So what inspired me to do law was really the fact that my uncle Bashir Rahim had studied law in UK, and came back as a barrister, and he was practicing law. And I used to live with him, and I used to find him doing his preparation for his trials and his submissions to the judge, and he would be pacing down the rooms, and he would talk loudly about what he's going to tell the judge or to tell the assessors, because we didn't have jury system, we had assessors. So I would listen to him, and he would make a presentation of summarizing the evidence, etc. He was a defense attorney, and therefore he would be talking in favor of the defendant. And so I would listen to him and say, this is interesting, it's exciting. Then I went to court and saw him in action. And I sat in the gallery, in the spectators' gallery, and I saw he was sitting there on the bench, and he was a magistrate, senior magistrate at one time. But also when he was a defense attorney, I went with him, and I would see him in action, talking to the judge and talking to the magistrates and submitting. So I said, this is cool. This is very cool. I said, this is amazing. This is a sense of empowerment. The judge and the court represents authority, extreme authority. They are the pinnacles of authority in people's minds, and because they make rules and they give orders and they make things. So I said, okay, I want to read law. But that was not the only thing. That only started me into thinking about doing law. But then when I started looking at the content of the law itself, like contracts, criminal law, land law, and various other aspects of law, I found, this is really interesting. And then I had a feeling that, look, I am so much interested in Islam, there is also an Islamic law. There is Sharia law, and so there is a comparator here. Here we are studying essentially common law with statutes of general application in a colony like Tanganyika at that time. And so we are studying the law that is inherited. And a lot of interesting ideas come to you. But then you say, okay, what's the law of evidence in Islam?
So you found law interesting?
Very interesting.
Right, okay. But I want to ask you a question. Are you a one-handed lawyer or two-handed lawyer?
So I don't know what you mean by one-handed.
Okay, let me explain to you. It's very, very interesting. Whenever we go for advice to the lawyer, to legal mind, it's never a single-handed expression that comes out. It always is like this. On one hand it is like that, on the other hand it is like that, on one hand. It's never a decisive thing. And that is the reason why I asked whether it's one-handed or two-handed. It's just a joke. I don't think you need to answer that.
No problem.
That's why I say, are you one-handed or two-handed? So, but that is how law works. Law is always telling you, well, on one hand, this can be the result. On the other hand, if the issues go this way, it would be this. So there's always that tussle, which the law tells you, the legal mind tells you. Anyway, there was just a joke, perhaps a dry joke.
It is a good joke. Actually, I have a perspective on that.
Right.
And my perspective is this, that whenever I look at any legal issue, there are, of course, two sides to the legal issue.
That's what I was getting at.
But further to that, you have to cross that kind of stage and say, okay, this is that or that. But you've got to say, what is the most likely outcome? Now, the prediction that you make in your own mind in front of the court, depending if it's the Court of Appeal that I've appeared before, High Court that I've appeared before, or Magistrates Court that I appeared before, what is the likely outcome of how does it appear to them, and how can we present this perspective? So there are two types of perspective. One is on facts.
No, that I understand. I was just thinking in terms of a person coming for legal advice and, ordinary person. So when they come for legal, they will always feel that the lawyer should be much more sort of decisive into saying that, look, it's more likely to be against you than for you. More likely the lawyer will present it as on one hand it is like that, on the other hand it is like that, and it's always hanging. So that was basically my point.
But I think on that particular point, I took the view that one needs to be definitive in some sense. That look, he has to decide what to do, and I can't say, oh, this or that. So I said, he was asking me, what shall I do? Therefore, I said, okay, do this.
Okay, well, you are very decisive. In that case, you are a single-handed lawyer,
Right.
not a double-handed lawyer.
Right.
Okay, then now you worked for, after the law degree, you went to work for Commonwealth Institute. Now that's quite a...
Not Secretariat.
Sorry?
Secretariat.
Secretariat, so I beg your pardon, Secretariat. Now that's quite a prestigious institution.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you meet the Queen?
Oh, yeah.
All right, and...
I met the Queen in a,
So what were
a
your...
garden party.
Right.
And when I was told that the Queen is coming with her maid in chief, I told my wife, Amina, that look, I've been invited to go with my wife.
Right.
And I can take you with me, and I can take you to Marlborough House, which is a palace, and we will go and meet with the Queen, and you can talk to the Queen. So she really enjoyed that. It was amazing. It was a garden party. She watched the Queen and coming around. But there was a second opportunity where it was held indoor, and I took her as well.
Right. Good.
And the Queen passed by, because I was standing with my wife, and she was talking next to the person who was a priest, about some matters to do with practice in Christianity, etc., or the work of the priest. And my wife was absolutely amazed. She was just virtually this distance, the distance we are at the moment. She is watching the Queen. She is listening to the Queen. And, this is absolutely amazing to her. So I
For
think
the conversation.
the conversation as well, because it so happened that my wife was talking to the very person. She was a lady priest, and she had been talking about religious matters, our Islamic perspective and etc. And to hear the Queen talk to her, and for her to be addressing the Queen very frank conversation, it takes the mystique out of that idea of royalty, and say, this is a human being who is interested in you.
Right, yeah. An ordinary person, yeah? Just like us. Yeah, it's just a title. Makbul, did you meet any head of state?
Yeah.
And any sort of, you want to share any experience?
Yeah, so whenever I went to the Caribbean countries, I met the head of state.
Who comes out as a good impression?
A very good impression was someone in Grenada whom I met. Grenada Island is a very interesting island. So I went there to do a project, and we met, we were invited to go and see the president, the head of state, and the head of state asked me a question. He said, have you swum? Have you taken a dip in the sea in Grenada? I said, no, not yet. We didn't have much time to do that. Because, swimming, you can swim in the swimming pool. I said, I would urge you to swim, because whoever swims always comes back, because it's so lovely to swim here.
Right, okay.
So, it's a kind of a personal touch.
Yeah.
So we have a president who is talking to you as a person, and he is talking at a level. We are not talking of high policy or anything here. We're talking, of course, we are talking that as well, but here we are talking as a human
Ordinary
being.
sort of, yeah.
Very congenial conversation, which was very appealing.
A human to human, yeah.
Human to human.
Yeah, yeah. That's very, very interesting. Now, Makbul, I want to come to the community life now, because I think it gives a very good reflection of why you did law and then what you did subsequently. And of course, your CV is very impressive, alhamdulillah. Now, you were a teacher and the principal of Hydery Islamic school in South London for 10 years, long time. Now, what were the challenges at that time? Now, reflect on this. At that time, and how does it compare it today? Because you were teaching the young people there, so you understood the young mind there. And what about now? How do you see, is there a difference, different challenges, or same?
Yeah, so the context there was we were trying to set up from scratch, from zero, Hydery community. There was nothing in the Hydery community in 1986, 87. Hammersmith, the community had moved from Hammersmith to Stanmore, and therefore we bought a synagogue, which was we call Hydery Islamic Center. And we want to set up everything. So we set up lectures, we set up madrasa, we set up curriculum, we set up a lot of things. The challenge is, I started off as a teacher first, because we had 2 people before me who were principal.
Who were they?
Yeah, one was Afzal Somji.
All right.
Afzal Somji, a very prominent person in South, who has been with the South for a long, long time, and also very prominent in Dar es Salaam days. He used to be in Scouts and Cubs as well.
Yes, yes.
So amazing personality. So he took on the job of coordinating as a chief coordinator. At that time, we didn't create a hierarchy of a principal or a headmaster. And then after him, we had someone from Moshi who was available to be a principal, and I think his name is Ali Raza, and he was good. He institutionalized it, so he stayed as until I think he died. Then it was only 1 or 2 years, and then he passed away, and then we had this situation that we needed someone. And so the teachers asked me, why didn't you come on and be a principal, because you're already a teacher. So I said, okay, I will. So our challenges is our vision. What are we trying to create? So what are we trying to do? So we have a situation where we are teaching children from very young age to the time they become 16, 17, and then they'll kind of go into society, into the communities. I said, okay, let us think in terms of training the young minds into the curriculum. We used the Nairobi curriculum, which was prepared by them, and we used many models, Also the model of Stanmore was being used as well. So we used all that and said, okay, we are going to train them to become, proficient in understanding religion, but with a vision in mind that they will, when they reach the age of 16, 17, when they are supposed to go, they will not let them go. We'll make them assistant teachers and give them the prospect of this prestigious position for them, that they are going to be assistant teachers, and then get them to be teachers. And that was an amazing success, because these teachers, assistant teachers, sat there as shadow teachers, and they understood how teaching is done, but they had their own perspective of how to engage with.
Did you feel, though, Makbul, that is very interesting, did you feel that the young mind that were coming to the madrasa, they had a specific challenge because they were attending schools, the environment is non-Islamic, and were you satisfying their challenges in their mind? And if you understood what was the challenges of those generation at the time when you were the principal, and compare it to today?
Yeah, so when I was the principal there, we understood, of course, that they're going through secular education system. There's cultural differences, and those.
That was the challenge.
Yeah, that's the cultural differences, and the fact that whatever they're being asked to do in school was, in a sense, not in conformity or even inconsistent with what we were expecting in Islam. But that was also, it's a kind of, how do you live in a society? And I think it's a microcosm. If your society is taking you in a certain direction, and then you set up an institution that tries to bring them in a direction which is not entirely consistent with that, but taking into account that, look, sieving what the practice is and the culture and everything. So you create a conflict and tension in the mind, in the young mind, because they will always do the thing. So one of the things that came up, halal food. Halal food was in schools, what is being given, halal food. Okay, we're saying you're supposed to have halal food, and these are the reasons. One other thing was chadar. Okay, because hijab. So hijab was not something that was common at that time. And therefore, these kinds of examples of other things that came up were expectation of doing things like parties, school parties, and all that. Because I came across this in Scarborough when I went to Afghan Center in Canada, Toronto, and I sat with them. I was giving lectures to them in Muharram, and I sat with them to know about the challenges. They said, we are being picked in school to be dancing with boys as a part of a ball, as a part of a concert, as part of something, as expected. And we don't know what to do. We have huge problem with this, and our parents, they don't know what to do. So then when I heard about this, I spoke to the community at large, because we had the opportunity to speak to the community at a gathering. I said, your children are really dealing with situations and challenges that you should attend to. Do something about it. You can do something about it. So this is an example of the. Now when I talk about current challenges, I think the challenges have increased. They have not decreased. They were slow in emerging. Now they are taking place. One of the things that is so important right now is the whole issue of why do I have to come to madrasa in a young mind? Why do I have to come to madrasa and learn all these things? So how do I make the training and the teaching amenable to the mind, attractive and interesting for people to understand? So alhamdulillah, the tarbiyah thing has been very useful in that respect.
Yeah.
But there are challenges, and they are increasing. So the more we identify these challenges, we have to kind of say, okay, what is the best way of dealing with them?
But I was just thinking, this is my reflection, that in your time, 10 years, we had this challenge about halal food and the hijab issue, which were then accommodated by the public. Halal is not food is not an issue now. If you now look at the type of values and the moral challenge that we have now, it is such a deep one now, because we have issues of gender and all that now, which now we have to deal with it in a much more sort of deeper way. There, in United Kingdom, the hijab issue was dealt only, you can wear hijab if it is in the color of your uniform. Ideologically, in France, for example, there's an ideological issue which did not allow this sort of thing to happen. So United Kingdom was more pragmatic. But now the issues are much more deeper, particularly LGBT issue and all that. And so madrasa and the system will have to now deal with those things. So I was sort of getting at that. So I think we agree on that these are the things.
I agree.
Now I want to come to, you have lectured on many Islamic topics, so many of our communities throughout the world, yeah? What is the state of religious knowledge? Is there a vacuum where religious scholars needs to concentrate more? I'm talking about now Khoja Shia Ishnashi community. We see a lot of lecturing going on. What do you think is the state of religious knowledge of our community? Or do you think there's a vacuum where the religious scholarship needs to concentrate more on it?
No, I understood the question. I think there's definitely a major vacuum. Once, on one hand, you can assume, or you come to the view that over thousands and thousands of lectures and majalises over one's lifetime, so about 400 or 350 per year, and then say 10 years, 20 years, thousands of lectures, you would expect people to have increased the level of the knowledge, A, in terms of factual knowledge, B, in terms of understanding what it does, what it is supposed to implicate, the implications of that knowledge. And third, reflecting and thinking about that knowledge. But I have found that there are some people who do have this capacity to do this. They are interested, and they would talk to you about those things. But on the whole, when people come for majalises, they do not necessarily treat it like a university class. They do not come there with they don't come there with acquiring new knowledge, which is what happens in universities. They come with knowing about things that they are familiar with. So they are coming with they're coming with the idea that they'll be conforming, there'll be endorsement of what is there, what they already know. But I think that...
assuming that what they know is correct.
Yeah, assuming whatever they've understood is correct. But I remember Mullah Sahib saying to me that because we used to sit there, and I think you were there as well, during the Mubalighin classes that we used to do in Stanmore here, and I used to come from south. Mullah Sahib saying once to me that, look, if you give a lecture, at least leave one point as a takeaway point for people to think about, so they can think about it. So it is like trying to bring them to think about something, to reflect. Now, I personally, when I go to any lecture, which I kind of listen to, I will look for a number of things. I'll say, what is new that is stated? What is it, something that interesting that I should research? And thirdly, how do I take it? So do I take it necessarily that whatever is being stated, I need to check it out. So I have a researcher mentality. I need to check it out. I need to say, okay, what's the source of this? And what is my understanding of that source, and etc. So now this type of mentality, people don't necessarily inquire.
So what's the general, how do you see it generally?
General, people come to meet each other, to have social gatherings, to feel comfortable, to get sense of identity, to feel nice with each other, and also to learn something. So if, for example, things are put in a very simple way, things are narrative way, historical way, story ways, so it makes it interesting for most people.
So has the general knowledge, has the religious knowledge improved?
I don't know how do you measure that. I mean,
well, because you go everywhere. That's the reason why I started with that preamble. And because you go everywhere, you must have some sense.
So I have a sense, that we get a sense when we hold question-answer sessions.
But it's not regularly held.
No, not regular. But we have a sense at the end of the 10 lectures, we'll have question-answer session. We'll have sessions with students from madrasa. But when I...
General body, I'm talking about the general lay people. I mean, if we improve their knowledge, then admittedly in the family environment, the knowledge will increase. Yeah. And then, of course, the children's knowledge, because that environment is good. See how the connection is between family, the community, the member, the madrasa. And so I was getting at that in your reflection after lecturing so many communities, do you feel that, the religious knowledge of our community has increased, or we are still sort of dabbling with the same thing?
I think if I say religious knowledge has not increased at all, that will be erroneous. That will not be correct, because there must be, and there has been, some indications of more knowledge. So when you sit together in halakas, after majlis, you'll find people talking. And if you see youths talking, adults talking, they'll be talking about something what they understand, what they have understood, what they have heard before. So there has been some incremental, whether that's enough or not.
The crowd is not as big as it used to be.
Oh, you mean attendance?
Attendance.
So attendance, in my own opinion, is a function.
You see this crowd not coming in, the religious knowledge after 30, 40 years of listening to the lectures, if the increase is not there, then I think that something fundamental that needs to be evaluated, isn't it?
Yeah, my reaction to that is, in today's environment, if I did not come to the mosque, for whatever reason, I have a variety of ways in which I can consume majlises.
We don't have, as you say, we don't have a measurement.
But we don't have measurement.
Well, but that is something which, obviously, data gathering and all that is something which we should have, really, as a small community. Yeah. But anyway, that's interesting. Media, now this is another thing that you have, I saw in the CV that you give interviews in Safar, Ahlul Bayt and all that. I'm just wondering, Makbul, that do you think that what is their role in a plural society like ours, where there are many ideologies, many religions, people are seeking understanding? Do you think that this TV media that we have, or we had, because nowadays I don't think we have any, except from Ahlul Bayt. Hidayat is also now. Yeah. So do you feel that they have played an effective role in tabligh work, or is it just for internal consumption, the same sort of thing that we would like to hear the marshia and the nauha and all that, so obviously that is something which obviously satisfies us. But in the wider society where we are living, are we attracting base from there?
Yes. So now we are in a world where the social media creates its own platforms.
So what is the role of this? Do you think that they have played a role?
Now, let me come to that.
Yeah.
So at the time when I was giving, when I was invited to speak at Ahlul Bayt television or Safir or other As-Sahar or other other platforms, at that time this development of creating your own platform, I'm talking about 20 years
That's
now,
right, yeah.
was not that high. Anyone, you can create a platform yourself and give lecture in front of the camera and say, okay, this is my lecture. I don't need to be invited anywhere. I just give a lecture and it will be there. I'll put it on YouTube and it will be on my channel. At that time, Ahlul Bayt was seen as a channel that was prestigious to give information and knowledge about Ahlul Bayt's teaching. But it was set up because I was involved with Mudarrisi. Then he set it up, Sheikh Mudarrisi. So at that particular time, they had in mind tabligh. And they had in mind tabligh not only to the Shia community, but the Muslim community, and then to the world at large. So they used to talk about topics that would be able to, you could discuss on that side. So Ahlul Bayt, for example, we had very many interesting topics. One of the topics that, we used to have an amazing presenter on Ahlul Bayt television with whom we did a lot of programs in Africa.
The lady?
A lady.
Yeah, right, okay. I know, but I've forgotten her name.
It'll come, inshallah. The thing is, we did Karbala live programs from Karbala, standing in front, we studio in front of the Haram of Imam Hussain. We did a lot of programs like that. But the idea at that time was to let people who are not familiar with Ahlul Bayt to make
So
them
basically,
familiar.
as I understand it, that the function at that time was to impart Ahlul Bayt's knowledge to Muslims who are not familiar with that,
Exactly.
right? So they did not have the agenda of attracting beyond that.
Well, they
Because they felt that let's start with this,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
In terms of
So
targeting.
what is now the state of Ahlul Bayt that you is it still on or?
No,
or
I
is
think
it-
Ahlul Bayt television, you see, most of these TV channels have, there are problems about continuation on Sky and all that.
Finance
thing,
and all
yes,
that as well, yeah.
Financial and
Yeah.
all that. And so they have Safir for a long time was doing it on social media because when they didn't have the license on the channel.
What is your reflection, Makbul, though, on how effective they have been in their role? Do you think that they have performed well? I know I'm putting in you in a bit of a...
No, it isn't. It is a valid question. I mean, first of all, how do I know whether they have been effective or not? So in the community, people who talk to me about what I've said, what I've spoken about, and what their reaction has been. So that is one measure of effectiveness. Look, I made someone think. So when I talked about environmental issues long time ago on television, there were and the other thing is those channels had question-answer sessions, and so people used to ask questions on television, on telephone, and so you get a sense of what is the interest. So I think you can, if you want to pronounce judgment on that, you could say they're very effective in that particular era.
So they did make a progress. Okay.
Yeah.
Now that's what I wanted to know, because it's shame that we did not go beyond that and became a media which attracted a lot of audiences from beyond the Muslim audience. I mean, that was my vision and understanding, that we are in a country now. We are able to do something like that, which you're not able to do anywhere else. And because we are able to do it, we could take this opportunity, and that was sort of my sense. But it's pity now. It's of course social media is now obviously much more dominant.
It is more impactful
Yeah.
than on some of these channels, because the channels have lost that monopoly of people's hearing or attention.
Right.
And so you find that they are in Abrar House.
Yeah.
We have lectures
Yes,
which
yes,
are
yes.
geared towards the Muslim community, and I've given lectures there myself. And people come from all over, and they talk about many subjects, different subjects, and that is put on the social media, and it's now put on YouTube.
Yes.
So
yeah.
that they become more important that way.
Yeah, but the thing is now that even that is getting saturated because there's so many programs, Makbul. So which one should I watch? And we only have 24 hours a day.
Saturation indeed.
Yeah. Now, Makbul, I'm coming to the end because but I've got about very important 2 or 3 questions, and if we can be brief of it and candid as well. One thing is on interfaith, your interest in interfaith. Do you think, in your opinion, that the interfaith program, do we have an interfaith program in Hujjat?
Yeah.
Right. They're effective, do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fine. That's what I wanted to know. If
people-
they're effective, then that's fine. But if they're not effective, I was going to ask you, well, what else can we do to make it more effective?
But we need to know, I think people need to know what interfaith programs we have. So, for
No,
example,
make it brief,
Yeah, very brief.
Makbul, yeah.
We have interfaith program with the Jewish community and the Christian community and the Jain community and with Hindu community, and we have had this both in the center where we invited the temple people here. We have done it in the synagogues.
When was the last time we had it done?
Oh, the last time we did it was earlier this month.
Earlier this month?
Earlier this month, and we did it in Sacred Hearts Church.
Right. So the delegation from the Hujjat went. Yeah.
So we had, I don't think there are many people who actually attended, but we had a team. We have a team of interfaith here. And then we also have a team, a lady, Umibai, who actually used to work and continues to work with Ajmer Synagogue. So it is, the interfaith is maybe not structured as it ought to be, but it is something that was going on.
Yes, but it's been going on for such a long
For a
time.
long time.
And but does it have the effectiveness that it's supposed to have? That it goes down into the community. The Islamic knowledge or Islamic principles goes into the community. So they understand what Islam is, or is it only between those people who meet up on the day and it remains there? I'm just thinking aloud.
So now, if you attend a typical interfaith gathering, like in Bushy,
Right.
when I did my last one, it was on the issue of grieving.
Yeah, but was it quite a packed
so
audience? Or?
The audience was non-Muslim. There were Jewish and Christians congregations which are present, some Hindus and some Muslims were there. And our community, we had 3 or 4 people there. They, at the end of this discussion that we had, because I spoke on the Islamic perspective of, how do you grieve and what is the whole question of accountability. And the Christians spoke about their own perspective and the Jews spoke. One of the common complaints that I get from the congregation that we have been having for a while was that the youths are not coming. It is the elders who are coming. So but this time, there were many youths who came.
Okay. Well, that's a good sign. But I'm just thinking overall, has there been an effectiveness or not? But you're saying it's improving, yeah?
But again, we have to have a measure of how
We don't have a measure. That's something which should be lacked in everything, by the way. But we should be much more in tune with how we measure our progress. But how do you see our Shia community developing over the next 50 years?
Right. So I envisage a situation where our community starts taking serious note of all the challenges and working out institutional modalities to actually deal with them. There are many things that can be done or should be done, but there are ways of identifying possible solutions or possible ways out.
But how do you see our Shia community developing over the 50 years, do you think?
So our Shia community,
in United Kingdom.
I should kind of look at the future in 50 years' time. Well, I think in 50 years' time, we'll have mosques, we'll have communities, we'll have social gatherings, we'll have even greater big communities, we'll have many activities, functions and everything, and we'll all be having the target of increasing knowledge, target of increasing understanding or dealing with situation. But whether or not within the 50 years we have the institutional capacity to make a quantum leap, I'm not certain.
Right. So basically, that's a very positive thing, that this is what you want. Whether we'll have the institutional capacity to reach that is challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And we have to develop the institutional capacity. So we will not get an institutional capacity coming out of nowhere. It has to be something that all our institutions, we have World Federation, we have COEG, we have Jamaats, our madrasa, they all have to work hand in hand
with other institutions,
to develop capacity in order to make that quantum leap, so that in 50 years' time, Septain number 2 cannot come and will be there asking questions. What did we do in the last 50 years, and how did we achieve?
That's a very insightful comment, Makbul. The whole thing repeats again. So Septain 2 and Makbul 2 will be sort of talking about the same thing, and people who are listening to us will say they haven't progressed, have they? But I agree with you that we have got to make sure that our institutions are ready to go towards the aim that you described, develop their capacity, and above all, we have to have some measure of assessment. How are we doing if once we have put some projects into effect, how well it has done? Because without that, we don't have. We are in the blind, aren't we? Anyway, thank you, Makbul. We had an interesting conversation, and on this note, we have to end, but I admire your passion and commitment to serve the community, which with embellishment, I have to say. And of course, your determination to do self-study at this age. I go to sleep after a while, but you remain awake, and you want to make sure that you get another degree. I think you're studying another degree, aren't you?
Well, I may well go for that. I may well go for another one. But Talabul Ilm, we have this very famous hadith.
Yeah. No, that's true. And it keeps the mind active, isn't it? And which Islamic topics that you're doing at the moment for research, if you can just briefly
I have one that I prepared. See, whenever I go to a majlis or lecture or listen to something on YouTube or whatever, there's an issue or a question mark. Okay, so how can I do, what sort of interesting research can I do to increase the knowledge on that? So one of the things I did was on Wukala system. So because I felt that personally I needed to know more about the lives of the imams, and how they dealt with the challenges of their times, sixth imam onwards, and how did our first imam deal with the challenge of passing on the knowledge of Shia Isnashi Mazhab to the generation, and how did it connect with Ghaibat Kubra at the moment. So I prepared a paper which is now due to be published, and that I gave to the Shia conference. I'm now doing another paper, another research, which I find interesting personally. I want to understand all the various Shia schools of thought and how they develop their understanding of ahadith and Quran and using it as hujjah, so the akhbaris and the usulis, and how did we get to the point of maraji at the moment from time of Ghaibat Kubra to Marja.
Very interesting topic, and we have to read that paper one of these days. But may Allah give you strength and also the skills to write this paper, and then hope that it can be published and we can all have the benefit of it. And so thank you very much,
thank you very much
Makbul, for coming at a short notice.
It's a pleasure. It was a great pleasure.
Yeah,
thank you
so
very much.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed it.
I thought it was most enjoyable, very intellectually stimulating.
No, but thank you very much, Makbul, and I'm sure our audience has also enjoyed our conversation, and I hope we don't have to have Makbul 2 and Septain 2 and repeat the whole thing again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, yeah. Shukran.